Willow Creek was the kind of place people moved to when they thought they'd made it. Neatly trimmed hedges guarding red brick two-story homes with pristine driveways, children on scooters rolling past cheerful mailboxes shaped like cartoon animals, and an HOA so strict that even the color of your mulch was dictated in a monthly newsletter written by retirees with too much time on their hands. But none of that mattered to the darkness that had begun to bloom beneath it all like black mold behind a wall, silent, unnoticed, until it was far too late. It began with a smell. At first, the neighbors thought someone's garbage hadn't been collected, maybe a dead raccoon under a porch or in the storm drains where the water pooled after a hard rain, but then the smell lingered too long, even after trash day came and went, and the HOA sent a note around asking everyone to please check their yards for decaying organic matter, which was suburban speak for, someone has a corpse in their flower beds. Mrs. Linda Holloway, who lived on Marigold Drive, was the first to vanish. Her home, perfectly symmetrical and always doused in the scent of artificial lavender from the candles she burned non-stop, remained locked for days without anyone entering or exiting, her mail piling like guilt in the rusted box at the edge of her driveway, and her little white dog barking in repetitive panic from behind the curtains until animal control took it away. People whispered. Some said she ran off with a man from her church group. Others said she simply went on vacation without telling anyone, but no one mentioned the foul stench that drifted from her backyard at night, riding the summer heat waves with the oily consistency of rot and regret. On the fifth night after her disappearance, something surfaced in the shallow end of her pool. Something pale and bloated with skin stretched so tight it looked like wax paper ready to split, and when the teenager hired to clean her pool screamed and fled, he left behind a single net floating beside the swollen body of Linda Holloway, her eyes wide open, her lips torn away in a grin no living person could ever make, and her body missing chunks of flesh as though bitten by something large and determined. The police called it an accident, said she'd slipped, hit her head, and drowned. No one believed them. Because under her fingernails, they found skin that didn't match hers. 1 week later, the town held its annual Willow Creek Garden competition. Despite the recent tragedy, the HOA insisted the event go on, claiming unity and cheerfulness would help restore neighborhood morale, and so the streets were decorated with sunflowers taller than most children, hanging baskets of begonias in vibrant orange and pinks, and a front lawn trimmed to resemble a koi fish, though its red eyes made the neighborhood children whisper that it looked more like a demon than a fish. But perhaps that was just the tension starting to crack through the manicured smiles everyone wore. That morning, a second disappearance occurred. Greg Hammond, a dentist known for both his perfect teeth and his habit of jogging at 5 a.m. sharp, never returned from his morning run, though his wife claimed to hear his footsteps come up the driveway, the front door creak, and the sound of the shower running just before she fell back asleep, but when she awoke, the bathroom was dry, the door was still locked from the inside, and the only thing inside was a trail of muddy footprints leading not into the shower, but out the open window. That afternoon, someone noticed a trail of blood seeping from the storm drain near the park. At first it looked like rust, streaks of dark red smearing the asphalt where kids played hopscotch hours earlier, but as the sun dipped behind the hedgerows, a boy named Jason popped the grate loose to peer inside and found a sneaker, Greg's, stuffed with something soft and jelly-like that made a wet plop when it was pulled out, and inside it, wrapped tightly around the foot still inside, was a note scrawled in what looked like dried blood and black ink. I plant what I take. I water what I break. The media descended on Willow Creek like flies on a corpse. The police offered patrols. The HOA handed out neighborhood watch badges like Halloween candy. Parents forbade children from riding bikes alone. But behind every closed door and trimmed hedge, fear simmered like a rotting stew, thick, foul, and growing worse by the hour. The killer struck again 3 nights later, and this time, they didn't even try to hide it. It was Susan from Elderberry Lane. Young, single, a wine rep with a loud laugh and sharper tongue, last seen leaving the monthly HOA meeting where she'd accused the president of embezzling dues to pay for his 4th car, a metallic blue sports model that stood out like a middle finger in the cul-de-sac. Her body was found seated on her own front porch swing, wearing a floral sundress she never owned, and her lips sewn shut with rose thorns so violently embedded into her cheeks that the skin had split around the edges like a jack-o'-lantern carved by a maniac. Her eyes were gone, sockets filled with potting soil, and someone had placed a pair of tulips into the holes, their roots slick with blood, their petals trembling in the wind like they were still alive. Pinned to her chest with a barbecue skewer was another note, written in that same terrible scrawl, "Every seed must sleep in red." The neighborhood exploded into paranoia. People boarded windows, bought security systems, installed motion lights that lit up like paparazzi flashes every time a squirrel twitched. The streets emptied after dark. Lawns grew wild. Mail piled. Silence devoured the sidewalks once filled with children's laughter. But no one left. Not really. Because something kept them there. Maybe denial. Maybe fear. Maybe something more, intentional. You see, there was something wrong with Willow Creek that went deeper than its killer, something older, something coiled beneath the soil like ancient roots twisting through time, feeding on blood and fear like fertilizer, and it was waking up. Detective Maria Eckhart was brought in after Susan's murder. She didn't fit in. Too hard around the edges. A city cop sent to babysit a dying suburb. Her boots crunched gravel where others walked on tiptoes, and her eyes, cold, tired, always watching, cut through the friendly facades like knives. She stayed in a guest house behind the Willow Creek HOA building, poring over files, photos, and witness statements by the dozen, trying to string the bodies together in a pattern, but all she found was dirt, literal dirt, on each body, each scene, each note, and when she tested the samples in the lab, they came back the same. A mix of human ash, bone dust, and a type of soil not native to anywhere in the state. On her fourth night, she heard whispering in the walls. At first, she thought it was the pipes, old copper groaning with pressure, but then the whispering formed words, low and wet and not entirely human, saying things like, "Dig where the roses bleed," and "Feed the root, and it will grow another face." That morning, she found claw marks beneath the floorboards. And fingernails. Lots of fingernails. That same day, another body appeared, this time strung upside down in the park gazebo, arms spread wide, intestines dangling like party streamers soaked in gore, and the skin peeled neatly from the skull like a surgeon's diagram. In its place, the killer had stapled a white porcelain mask, blank except for a single black X where the mouth should be. A trail of blood led from the gazebo to the community garden behind the clubhouse. Detective Eckhart followed it. There, she found a small grave freshly dug among the tomato plants and marigolds. Inside, a bundle of photos, every neighbor in Willow Creek, all taken from inside their homes, and at the very bottom, a map. A map of the neighborhood. Each house was marked. All but one. Her own. Detective Eckhart didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window with a cigarette clenched between trembling fingers, watching the garden sway beneath a wind that didn't touch the trees, and she knew. Deep in her bones, beneath every logical fiber of her mind, that something was going to happen that night. At 3:06 a.m., it did. The power died. Phones too. Even the backup generator in her trunk. Dead. Everything silent, suffocating, as though the night had swallowed the world whole. And then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy. From outside, she saw the lights flicker on across every house in the cul-de-sac. One by one. Not real lights. Candles, dozens in every window. And standing in each yard, something tall, cloaked in burlap, with garden shears glinting in one hand and a white porcelain mask glowing in the dark. They moved in unison. Toward her. She ran. Out the back, through the garden, past the blood-soaked marigolds and the blackened tomatoes that pulsed like infected blisters, until she reached the street, but the town had changed. The street stretched impossibly long in both directions, houses looping endlessly, fences repeating like reflections in a mirror. She was trapped. And in the center of it all, where the park used to be, was a new garden. A massive, circular field of freshly turned soil, steaming under moonlight, with dozens of crosses made from femurs and femur-sized bones, and in the middle, a hole, black, bottomless, breathing. The killer stood at the edge. Mask off. And it was no one she recognized. And yet, it was every face she'd seen. Linda. Greg. Susan. The kids. The old. The young. All of them layered like petals on a flower of flesh and teeth. It spoke without lips, we grow where we are buried. We bloom in the flesh of the forgetful. She tried to scream, but roots burst from the earth, crawling up her legs, splitting skin, yanking her down, down into the hungry dirt where the others waited. Faces sewn open in endless screams, eyes watching from beneath the soil, mouths gaping to consume what little remained of her sanity. As the earth closed over her, the last thing she saw was the garden. Blooming. Feeding. Waiting for its next season.